Have you ever noticed that some of the hardest lessons in life don't come from books, school, or advice? They come from experience. And by the time we finally understand them, the damage is already done. Human nature is complicated. We like to believe people are naturally fair, loyal, and kind. We grow up hearing things like good things happen to good people and hard work always pays off. But as the years pass, many people slowly discover something unsettling. The world doesn't always work that way. In reality, human behavior is often driven by things we don't like to talk about: self-interest, hidden jealousy, competition, and a constant desire for status and approval. These forces quietly shape the way people think, act, and treat one another every single day. The truth is, most people don't realize these patterns until much later in life. Sometimes after a betrayal, sometimes after being taken advantage of, and sometimes after trusting the wrong person for far too long. But once you begin to see these patterns, you start noticing them everywhere, in friendships, workplaces, relationships, and even in the smallest everyday interactions. This video isn't about becoming cynical or distrusting everyone around you. It's about understanding the deeper realities of human nature so you can navigate the world with clearer eyes and stronger awareness. Because the sooner you understand these truths, the better prepared you are to protect your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. In the next few minutes, we're going to explore 9 brutal truths about human nature, truths that many people only learn after painful experiences. And while some of these insights might feel uncomfortable at first, they reveal something incredibly valuable. Once you understand how people really behave, you gain the power to make wiser decisions about who you trust, who you invest your energy in, and how you move through life. And the first truth is something most people don't realize until it's far too late. Brutal truth number 1. One of the hardest truths about human nature is this: many relationships are built on value, not just emotion. Growing up, we're often taught that friendships and connections are based purely on loyalty, kindness, and mutual care. And while those things certainly exist, reality is often more complicated. In many situations, people unconsciously evaluate others based on what they bring to the table. This doesn't always mean money or material things. Value can come in many forms: status, influence, opportunities, knowledge, connections, or even emotional support. Whether we realize it or not, people are naturally drawn toward individuals who can improve their lives in some way. You can see this pattern everywhere. At work, people often gravitate toward colleagues who have influence or authority. In social circles, those who bring excitement, resources, or opportunities tend to attract attention. Even in everyday conversations, people tend to invest more time in relationships that feel beneficial to them. But the brutal part of this truth becomes visible when that perceived value disappears. Sometimes when someone loses their status, wealth, or influence, certain relationships quietly fade away. The calls stop. The invitations disappear. People who once seemed supportive slowly become distant. This isn't always done with bad intentions. Much of the time, it happens subconsciously. Human beings naturally move toward what feels rewarding and drift away from what no longer benefits them. Understanding this truth isn't meant to make you cynical about people. Instead, it encourages awareness. When you recognize that value plays a role in many relationships, you begin to understand social dynamics more clearly. And that understanding helps you build connections that are not only beneficial, but also genuine and resilient. Truth number 2. Another difficult truth about human nature is that success often changes how people see you and how they treat you. Many people like to believe that respect is earned purely through character, kindness, honesty, and integrity. While those qualities matter, the reality is that visible success tends to influence how others perceive you far more quickly. When someone begins to achieve recognition, status, or financial success, something subtle happens in the way people respond to them. Suddenly, their opinions seem more valuable. Their words carry more weight. People listen more closely, agree more often, and show greater interest in being around them. The same ideas that may have once been ignored can suddenly sound impressive when they come from someone who appears successful. You can see this pattern throughout history and in everyday life. A person who struggles is often overlooked, but the moment they achieve something remarkable, the way people treat them begins to shift. Some people become more supportive, others become more curious, and some may even become more competitive or resentful. What's fascinating is that the person themselves may not have changed very much. Their personality, intelligence, and values might be exactly the same, but success changes perception. Humans naturally gravitate towards status and influence. Psychologically, we tend to associate success with competence, authority, and importance, even when the connection isn't always justified. But there is another side to this truth. Success doesn't only attract admiration. It can also reveal hidden feelings in others. Sometimes it exposes quiet jealousy, subtle competition, or people who suddenly want to be closer to you for their own benefit. Understanding this dynamic helps you stay grounded, because when success arrives, the way people treat you may change, but who people truly are often becomes much clearer. Truth number 3, not everyone wants you to succeed. One of the most uncomfortable truths about human nature is that not everyone who smiles at you is truly rooting for you. In an ideal world, success would be something people celebrate together. When someone grows, achieves their goals, or improves their life, others would naturally feel happy for them. But reality often tells a different story. Sometimes, your progress quietly makes others uncomfortable. Human beings naturally compare themselves to the people around them. When someone close to us begins to move forward, earning more, improving themselves, gaining recognition, it can unintentionally highlight areas where others feel insecure about their own lives. And instead of feeling inspired, some people respond with subtle resistance. This doesn't always appear as obvious hostility. In fact, it's usually much more subtle. It might show up as passive comments like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" or jokes that slightly diminish your accomplishments, or a lack of enthusiasm when you share good news. Sometimes the same people who once supported you begin to question your decisions, downplay your achievements, or act strangely distant when things start going well for you. This reaction often has less to do with you and more to do with how your success makes them feel about themselves. It's a difficult reality to accept, but it's a common part of human psychology. When someone begins to rise, it can disrupt the comfortable balance within relationships. Understanding this truth doesn't mean you should become suspicious of everyone around you, but it does remind you to pay attention to how people respond when things start going well. Because the way someone reacts to your success often reveals far more about their character than their words ever could. Truth number 4, people often judge you in seconds. Another difficult reality about human nature is how quickly people form opinions about one another. Within just a few seconds of meeting someone, the human brain begins making rapid judgments. Without realizing it, people evaluate appearance, posture, tone of voice, facial expressions, and confidence. From these small signals, they create a first impression that can be surprisingly powerful. Psychologically, this happens because the brain is designed to make quick assessments. Throughout human history, our ancestors had to decide very quickly whether someone was a friend, a threat, or someone to avoid. Those fast judgments helped people survive. Even today, that instinct still shapes the way we see others. Before a single meaningful conversation even begins, someone may already have formed an opinion about whether you seem trustworthy, confident, intelligent, or approachable. And once that impression is created, it can be surprisingly difficult to change. This is why two people can say the exact same thing, yet be treated very differently. One person might be respected and taken seriously, while another might be overlooked or doubted. Often, it isn't just about the words being spoken, it's about the presence behind them. Body language, eye contact, and the way someone carries themselves can strongly influence how others perceive their competence or authority. This truth may seem unfair, but it's an important part of human psychology. Understanding it allows you to become more aware of how subtle signals shape perception. Because while people may eventually learn who you truly are, those first few seconds often determine whether they're willing to listen in the first place. Truth number 5. Kindness is sometimes seen as weakness. Kindness is one of the qualities people admire the most. We're taught from a young age that being generous, patient, and understanding makes us good human beings. And in many situations, kindness truly does create stronger relationships and a better world. But there's a difficult side to this truth that many people only discover through experience. Not everyone sees kindness as strength. Some people interpret kindness as weakness. When someone is consistently patient, forgiving, and accommodating, certain individuals may begin to test those boundaries. They may assume that the kind person won't say no, won't push back, and won't defend themselves. At first, the behavior might be small. Someone interrupts you more often. They ask for favors, but rarely return them. They take advantage of your time, your energy, or your willingness to help. Over time, if those boundaries are never reinforced, the imbalance can grow. What started as kindness slowly turns into expectation. This doesn't mean kindness itself is the problem. In fact, true kindness is often one of the strongest qualities a person can have. The difference lies in whether kindness is balanced with self-respect. People who combine compassion with clear boundaries send a very different message. They show that they are generous, but not easily taken advantage of, supportive, but not submissive. Understanding this truth helps you protect your kindness instead of losing it, because the goal isn't to become cold or distrustful. It's to remain kind while also recognizing when someone is crossing a line. And when kindness is paired with strength, it becomes something far more powerful than weakness. It becomes respect. Truth number 6. Most people follow the crowd. Human beings like to think of themselves as independent thinkers. We believe our opinions are our own, carefully formed through logic and personal experience. But the truth is, much of human behavior is influenced by something far simpler: the crowd. Throughout history, people have shown a powerful tendency to follow the majority. When a group believes something, individuals within that group often feel pressure, sometimes subtle, sometimes strong, to agree. This happens because humans are deeply social creatures. For thousands of years, survival depended on belonging to a group. Being accepted meant protection, cooperation, and safety. Being rejected meant isolation. Even today, that instinct still lives inside us. You can see it in everyday situations. When a popular opinion spreads, many people adopt it without questioning it deeply. When a trend becomes fashionable, others quickly follow. When a group strongly supports an idea, individuals may hesitate to challenge it, even if they privately disagree. The fear of standing alone can be stronger than the desire to be correct. This is why crowds can sometimes amplify both good and bad behavior. A group can inspire cooperation, courage, and progress, but can also encourage conformity, silence critical thinking, and make people ignore their own instincts. Understanding this truth allows you to see social dynamics more clearly. It reminds you that just because many people believe something doesn't automatically make it right. And it encourages you to pause before automatically aligning with the majority. Because real independence often begins at the moment when someone has the courage to step back from the crowd and think for themselves. Truth number 7. People remember how you made them feel. One of the most powerful aspects of human nature is how strongly emotions shape memory. People often believe that relationships are built on logic, on what was said, what was done, or who is technically right or wrong. But in reality, what people remember most is how someone made them feel. A conversation filled with facts and explanations might seem clear in the moment, yet months later, the details often fade. What remains is the emotional impression that interaction left behind. Did the person feel respected, understood, appreciated, or did they feel dismissed, embarrassed, or overlooked? These emotional impressions tend to stay far longer than the exact words that caused them. You can see this in many parts of life. A teacher who encouraged a student may be remembered for decades, even if the student forgets the lessons themselves. A friend who stood by someone during a difficult moment may leave a lasting impact, even if very little was actually said. On the other hand, a single moment of humiliation or betrayal can linger in someone's memory for years. This doesn't mean that facts and logic don't matter. They certainly do, but emotions often shape how those facts are interpreted and remembered. Understanding this truth helps explain why emotional intelligence is so important in relationships. The ability to recognize how others are feeling and to respond with empathy can strengthen connections in ways that logic alone cannot. Because in the end, people may forget the exact words you spoke, but the way you made them feel can stay with them for a very long time. Truth number 8. Power reveals true character. One of the most revealing tests of human nature is power. When people have little control or influence, their behavior is often shaped by limitation. They must cooperate, compromise, and adapt to the authority of others. In those situations, it can be difficult to see who someone truly is. But when power enters the picture, something interesting happens. Power removes many of those limitations. A person who gains authority, whether in a workplace, a social group, or any position of influence, suddenly has the ability to make decisions that affect others. And with that freedom, their deeper character often becomes visible. Some people use power responsibly. They lead with fairness, respect, and a genuine desire to improve the lives of those around them. Their authority strengthens trust and creates stability. But others respond very differently. When power is placed in the hands of someone who lacks empathy or self-awareness, it can amplify arrogance, control, and selfishness. Small signs of ego that were once hidden can grow much larger. This is why people often say that power doesn't necessarily change a person. It reveals them. It exposes how someone truly thinks about responsibility, respect, and the value of other people. History, workplaces, and even small social groups are filled with examples of this pattern. The moment someone gains authority, their choices begin to show whether they view power as a tool for leadership or a tool for dominance. Understanding this truth encourages you to observe people carefully, especially when they gain influence. Because the way someone treats others when they hold power often reveals the most honest version of who they really are. Truth number 9. Some people will betray you when it benefits them. Perhaps one of the most painful truths about human nature is the reality of betrayal. Most people grow up believing that loyalty is one of the strongest bonds between individuals. We trust friends, colleagues, and sometimes even strangers with the expectation that they will act with honesty and integrity. And many people do, but history and personal experience often reveal another side of human behavior, one driven by self-interest. When people are placed in situations where their personal gain conflicts with loyalty, some will choose the path that benefits them the most, even if it means betraying someone who trusted them. This doesn't always appear as dramatic or obvious betrayal. Sometimes it's subtle. A colleague may take credit for your work when an opportunity arises. A friend may share something you told them in confidence. A partner may prioritize their own advantage when circumstances change. In these moments, people reveal a difficult truth. Loyalty can sometimes disappear when pressure, opportunity, or personal ambition enters the picture. Psychologically, this happens because survival instincts and self-preservation are deeply rooted in human nature. When people feel their own success, reputation, or security is at stake, some will justify choices they might once have considered unthinkable. Understanding this truth isn't meant to make you distrust everyone around you. In fact, many people remain deeply loyal even in difficult circumstances. But it does remind you to recognize that trust should be built gradually and thoughtfully. Because while loyalty is one of the most valuable qualities a person can have, the moments when it's tested are often the moments when people reveal who they truly are. Understanding human nature doesn't mean losing faith in people. It simply means learning to see the world more clearly. When you recognize these patterns, you become better at protecting your energy, choosing the right people to trust, and navigating life with greater wisdom. If you found this video thought-provoking, make sure to subscribe for more content exploring psychology, human behavior, and the deeper truths about how people think and act. And remember, sometimes the most powerful knowledge isn't about changing the world, it's about understanding it.